I'm just going to give a quick demonstration of how mapping of sources and destinations works in Rascula's RouteMaster software. Um, by default, RouteMaster just gives a one-to-one mapping, so source one that the RouteMaster clients see will be source one on the router, and similarly with destinations. We have a couple of ways of changing that though. The simplest way, using the mapping tab in the router configuration, basically allows you to set up an offset on the sources and destinations and level indeed, and also change the number of sources and destinations available. This is handy if you simply want to make a subset of the sources on the router available, and that subset of sources and destinations is still contiguously numbered. Sometimes it isn't as simple as that though. Quite often you may have a set of sources available that are scattered across the router, and you want not only to select only certain sources but to renumber them into a more logical way. There is a way of doing that, but it's not immediately clear from the UI how it's done, so I'll just show you what we do. I've set up a dummy video router here, and it's not done in the mapping tab. Instead we use the groups tab. Now, groups mechanism is normally used to define subgroups of sources and destinations, give them a name, so you can then say, show me the status of the VTRs and things like that. But there's a special group we can use called base with an underscore prefix. This is really setting up a group that redefines all the sources and all the destinations within the router. So for this router, I've just set the source names here, showing that 5, 6, 7, and 8 are really corresponding to the ones who want to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 for their sources. And on the destinations, we've got 15, 14, 13, and 5 as the ones that we want for our destinations. So those are really just showing the names I've assigned. But if I go back to my groups tab, you can see that those are defined as the base group for sources and destinations. So I'll just set this as the master router and just run up RouteMaster here. So now I can see that the outputs 1, 2, 3, and 4, the first 4 that are appearing. I've only actually set up 4 here, but obviously you could keep it through. So basically ignore the ones beyond the first 4. And similarly, I can now make a route here. And again, we're seeing those inputs are the first 4 that I see here. Just to show what's going on, I can turn on the logging view. I'll just clear that out. So we'll see that when I make a route, for example, I route input 4 to output 4, we'll see that it's actually routing input 8 to output 5. And let's just go back and see what's happening there, just verify that. In the configuration for my video, input 8 to output 5, so source 8 is indeed 4 and output 5 is indeed 4. So it's doing that mapping correctly. So that's the basis of the mapping. How does it work if you want to have an audio router and a video router maybe which have totally different mappings required? Well, that's easy to do too. Here I've just set up an audio router which has, as we see, very different mappings. I could look at the names here. So I've got my 2 audio and video routers, and I've then constructed what we call a stacked router, which you do via the Add Stacked Router button, which is using those video and audio routers as to provide separate levels of the single stacked router. So I'm going to set my stacked router as the master. And now, when I run up RouteMaster, we'll see I see the V and A, video and audio levels now, which are names I've assigned. And again, I've got this same mechanism here, and I can verify the routes that are being made using the logging window. One thing just to talk about that quickly. In the logging window, you don't normally see the routes, individual routes, unless you set the logging level on each router individually to be verbose, and that allows you to control what's being logged. That's it. Hope that's useful.